Right, in this video, I'm basically just going to be going over two ways on how to calculate the mean given two different kinds of inputs. I actually received this as a comment, so again, if you have any other things that you'd like me to do, you can just leave them in the comments below. But anyway, so far I have two methods over here that I've written, or at least the shells. One's an easy method and one's a hard method. And then I have our usual class or main method, and then for import statements I just have scanner. So I'm going to start off in the main method, and I'll just keep explaining what I do as I go along, so give us some more space over there. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to set up my scanner. So I like to name mine just input. That's just habit. That's just how I've been taught and doing it. You can name it whatever, just keep it consistent. And then the next thing that I want to do is I want to store int easy and then call the easy method and pass in the scanner. And that should be that for the easy method. I'm just going to leave that space. And then here we're passing in scanner input. And using this scanner, what we're going to do is we're just going to say system.out.println, how many values are you going to enter? And then here we're going to write int, loop. And we're just going to say that's going to be equal to the next int, right? So we're finding out how many values to loop over. Cool. Now afterwards, what we want to do is we want to say int total is equal to 0. And then once we have this total value, we can set up a for loop. For int is I equal to 0, I is less than loop I plus plus, right? And then just tag that end of for. Cool. So here, what we want to do is we want to loop over however many times that they said, right? So if they're going to provide us with 5 numbers, we want to loop over 5 times. But if you look over here, I is less than loop. So if I is 4, it's going to stop because, or it's going to be the last time, because when 5 it gets to the 5th iteration, or the start of the 5th, it's going to say 5 is not less than 5, 5 is equal to 5. We're going to stop. But since we're starting at 0, that should be fine because we're going to do 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, which will be 5 in total. So anyway, now what we want to do is we want to say, okay, enter your number. And here, instead of saving that in a variable, we can just instantly add that. So plus equals is going to be add, minus equals is going to be subtract, divide equal, etc., etc. So here we're just going to do plus equals, so add that value to the running total, and we're just going to do input.nextInt. Right, and then over here, what we want to do is we just want to return, and then total, right, which is our total, and then dividing that value by the loop, right, however many times we iterated through. So that should be that for the easy method. And before we run that, I'm going to go ahead and work on the hard method as well. So I have int hard is equal to hard method, and then same thing. So here, the reason why it's hard is because instead of looping through and asking them straight up, we're going to be taking in as many inputs as the user would like to give us. And so here, what we're going to do is, first of all, we want to reset the input value, right? So sometimes what happens is because we're taking in input.nextInt and input.nextLine, we want to just reset that. So what we can do is just input.nextLine. Actually, honestly, we can just get rid of this. We're just going to run this individually. That's cool. So what we can do now is we can just add system.out.println and say, please enter all of your values separated by commas no spaces. And this allows us to take a raw string. For example, like 1, 4, 5, that number there, right? And they don't have any spaces, so we can just use the space as a way to split, the comma to split out the values. So we're going to say string, and we're just going to say raw value. It's going to be equal to input dot next line. And speaking of input, before I forget, we need to import that, right? Because we passed that over here, but we're not taking it until now. Cool. So now what we're going to do is turn this string into an array. Right? So string, we're setting up a string array of, and we're going to call that real values. And this is going to be equal to raw values, raw value. And we're going to be splitting that. And here is where we're going to define that colon or that comma. Right? So here we're splitting by comma. Right? If you over here had said split it separated by dashes, and you put dash over here, you can split by dash. So it's really up to you, but just make sure that you're keeping it consistent. Otherwise, you're not going to be expecting you're going to receive an error or not get a full out string that's split. And this part is going to be pretty similar. So int total is equal to 0. And this time, just for the heck of it, let's do a enhanced for loop. So let's do string value, just random name, in real values. And what we want to do is total plus equal, and what we want to do is value. But you see, val over here is a string, and total is an int. So if you remember, we can't add a string to an int. And this is where the tricky part comes in, right? The splitting over here, you can read it, kind of understand it. We're splitting it by the comma. But over here, this is where things kind of get a little interesting. So what we need to do is we need to turn essentially this string into an int, right? But if you remember, strings are reference types, whereas ints are primitives. And so what you can say is, well, how is this going to work? Because if you have, let's say, a float, right? A float to an int, that's doable. You just typecast. But a string, well, that's going to be different. So that's why what we do is we're going to be calling it on integer. So integer.parseInt and pass in val. So let's just deconstruct what's happening here. We have integer with a capital I in the full spelling. So you notice how strings are capital S's? Integers are capital I's, which indicates that this is a actual reference type of ints. And therefore it has this built-in method where it can read in a string and make that into an int. So that's all that we need to do with the total. What we want to do now is return total. And just like last time we divided by loop, this time we're going to be dividing by the real values dot length. And now we have these two values stored. So what I'm going to be doing is saying, okay, well, I want to print out the easy and the hard averages. So no, that's string system.out.println, and what we want to do is easy method, and over here we're going to write easy, and then same thing over here, hard method and hard. Cool. So now we are going to over here clear, and we're going to run javac math.java. Let's see. Oh, forgot. Sorry, cool. Let's try to run this again. Alright, and then cool. So how many values am I gonna enter? Let's say 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Okay, I see. What I need to do is what I was talking about earlier and reset. So before we call the hard method, what we want to do is input.next line. Clear that out. See if that works. Clear. Compile again. And run. 5 values, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, let's enter all of our values separated by commas. So for the sake of just testing, let's just do the same 5 values. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Easy method, hard method, both give us 3. So as you can see, in this case, we just have the easy method where we, ask the user how many values. In this case, in the hard case, we have the, we have a just a string of the variables, right? And instead of separated by commas, I could separate it by 0, by dash, by plus. Really, it doesn't really matter. It's up to you. Just make sure that you're delimiting that over here. You don't want to do, in this case, a number, because you could have like 10 and it would split that into, 1 and 0, or it wouldn't even take the 0 for that case. So that's all. Hope that helped. And again, if you have anything else that you'd like to see, you can just drop that in the comments. Thank you.